I arrived at Lakeview Station on the first Tuesday of October. The drive from Millbrook took 4 hours through logging roads that narrowed until the trees pressed against both sides of my truck. The ranger who'd processed my transfer paperwork, a woman named Chen, had told me to follow the blue reflectors after mile marker 17. She'd been specific about that, blue reflectors only. I counted them as I drove, 43 reflectors over 9 miles. The station sat at the edge of a meadow that stretched maybe 200 yards before the forest swallowed it whole. A single-story building, green paint peeling, with a communications tower on the south side and a propane tank on the north. I parked beside a government-issue pickup that had seen better decades. The man waiting on the porch didn't wave. He watched me gather my duffel and walk the 30 yards to the steps. His uniform was regulation, but the patch on his shoulder read Lakeview Station in letters that seemed older than the standard issue. I'd been a park ranger for 6 years at 3 different posts. I'd never seen that patch design. "Elliot Ward," I said. "I know who you are." He was maybe 60, built like someone who'd spent his life walking rough terrain. "I'm Harlan. I run this station until I don't." "Chen said you'd be orienting me." "Chen doesn't work here." He turned and walked inside. "Leave your phone in the truck. It won't work anyway, but it's better if you don't carry it." I left it in the glove compartment. The station interior was what I expected. Front office with filing cabinets and a radio setup, a small kitchen through one doorway, bunks through another. Maps covered the walls, topographical surveys that showed the park's 700 square miles in obsessive detail. Red pins marked certain locations. I counted 19 of them. Harlan handed me a key ring, 12 keys, each one tagged with a number in permanent marker. "Lockers in the back, your bunk 2. Shift starts at 5 p.m. and runs until 7 a.m. Daylight hours are your own, but you stay on station grounds. The meadow counts. The tree line doesn't." "What's my patrol area?" He pulled a map from the stack on the desk and spread it flat. His finger traced a route that formed an irregular loop, maybe 8 miles total, passing through sections labeled Sector 4, Sector 7, and Sector 9. "You don't deviate from this route. You don't take shortcuts. You complete the loop in 4 hours, give or take 10 minutes. If you're running early, you slow down. If you're running late, you walk faster, but you don't run." "Why can't I run?" "Because the rules say you don't run." He folded the map and handed it to me. "You'll read the rules now, then you'll read them again, then we'll walk through them together, and you'll demonstrate that you understand." He led me to a desk in the corner of the front office. A laminated sheet sat in a plastic frame, the kind you'd find in a motel room explaining checkout procedures. The text was typewritten, the font slightly uneven, as if it had been produced on an old electric typewriter. "Sit," Harlan said. "Read it out loud. I need to hear you say each one." I sat. The laminate was worn at the edges from handling. Someone had reinforced the corners with clear tape. "Rules for Lakeview Station Night Patrol," I read. 1. Patrol begins at exactly 5:17 p.m. and must conclude by 9:22 p.m. You will complete the 8-mile route in that window. Do not arrive at any checkpoint more than 4 minutes early or 3 minutes late. Harlan nodded. "Keep going." 2. Between 7:41 p.m. and 7:58 p.m., you will be in Sector 7. During this window, do not speak. Do not clear your throat. Do not hum. If you hear your name called during this window, continue walking at normal pace and do not respond. I looked up at Harlan. His face was impassive. 3. Carry the following items at all times during patrol: flashlight with fresh batteries, radio set to channel 4, 30 feet of nylon rope, a whistle, and a bag of coarse salt weighing no less than 2 pounds. You will not need the salt. Do not leave it behind. 4. If you encounter another ranger on the patrol route, verify their identity by asking them to state the day's code word before approaching within 10 yards. Today's code word is posted at 0600 hours on the board by the radio. If they do not respond with the correct code word, do not approach. Do not speak further. Continue your patrol. 5. The trail will pass through a clearing at approximately mile marker 4. In the center of this clearing, there is a stone marker. Do not walk within 15 feet of this marker. The trail curves around it for this reason. Follow the trail. 6. Between 8:09 p.m. and 8:14 p.m., you must be stationary. Stop wherever you are on the route. Do not move your feet. You may move your arms and turn your head. At 8:15 p.m. exactly, resume walking at normal pace. 7. If you see lights in the forest that are not your flashlight or station lights, do not investigate. Note the location, time, and color of the lights in your patrol log. Continue your patrol. 8. There is a footbridge at mile marker 6. Cross it at normal walking pace. Do not stop on the bridge. Do not look down at the water. The bridge is 42 feet long. Count your steps if it helps. 9. You may hear footsteps behind you at various points during patrol. This is normal within expected parameters. Do not turn around to look. Do not speed up. Do not slow down. If the footsteps are directly behind you for more than 2 consecutive minutes, whistle once, a single short note, and continue walking. 10. The patrol route passes within sight of the old fire tower at mile marker 7. The tower is condemned and locked. If there is a light in the tower, note the time and continue. If there is no light in the tower between 8:32 p.m. and 8:44 p.m., stop immediately and radio the station. Wait for instructions before proceeding. 11. Return to the station by 9:22 p.m. Enter through the front door only. Before entering, knock twice and wait for acknowledgement. If no acknowledgement comes within 90 seconds, circle the building clockwise and try again. Do not try the back door. 12. After completing patrol, log your report before midnight. Include all observations, all timestamps, and any deviations from expected conditions. Do not include personal commentary or speculation. I set the laminated sheet down. These are serious. They're not requests, Harlan said. They're not guidelines. They're rules. What happens if I break one? I've been here 11 years. I've never broken one. He pulled a chair over and sat across from me. The ranger before me, his name was Dutton. He's the one who wrote most of these down. He worked here for 23 years. He's the one who figured out the timestamps. Figured them out how? Trial and error. He kept records. Harlan gestured toward a filing cabinet in the corner. 3 drawers full. Times, distances, patterns. He'd notice something was off, and he'd adjust. Add a rule. Modify a window. Eventually, he had a system that worked. Where's Dutton now? Harlan didn't answer for a moment. He retired, moved to Arizona. There was something in the way he said it that suggested I shouldn't ask more questions about Dutton. You said the rules keep getting refined, I said. Does that mean things change out there? Not exactly. Harlan stood and walked to the window that faced the meadow. The sun was getting lower, maybe 2 hours until my first patrol. The rules are about timing, about position, about what you do and when you do it. The things out there, they're consistent. They follow their own patterns. The rules are just our way of not intersecting with those patterns. What things? You don't need to know what they are. You need to know when they are, where they are, what they respond to. He turned back to me. In 6 years of rangering, you've probably dealt with poachers, lost hikers, maybe a few meth labs in the backcountry. All of those. This post doesn't have those problems. We're too remote, too hard to reach. The things we deal with here are different, and I'm not going to explain them to you because explanations don't help. Compliance helps. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him that understanding the threat was the first step to managing it. But something in his voice stopped me. He wasn't being dramatic. He wasn't trying to scare me. He was being practical. And that was somehow worse. "I'll do the patrol tonight," I said. "I'll follow the rules." "Good. We'll walk the route together now, while there's still light. I'll show you the markers, the checkpoints, where the trail curves, and why. Then you'll rest. Then you'll do it for real." We left the station at 4:12 p.m. Harlan carried a stopwatch and a clipboard. I carried the gear the rules specified: flashlight, radio, rope, whistle, salt. The salt weighed exactly 2 pounds. I'd checked the bag myself. The trail started at the northeast corner of the meadow, where a wooden post marked Sector 4 stood beside a gap in the tree line. The trees were old-growth Douglas firs, their canopy so thick that the light dropped by half the moment we stepped under their cover. "Marker 1, Harlan said, pointing to a reflective tag nailed to a tree at chest height. "You'll see these every quarter mile, blue reflectors. Count them as you go. There are 32 between start and finish." We walked at what Harlan called patrol pace, not quite 3 miles per hour, steady and sustainable. The trail was well maintained, cleared of debris, with gravel in the muddy sections. Someone had put serious work into keeping it passable. At mile marker 2, we passed a boulder with a faded paint mark on it. Harlan stopped. "This is where the silence window begins." 7:41 p.m. "You'll reach this point at about that time if you're on pace. From here until you reach that downed log." He pointed ahead, maybe 800 yards. "You don't make a sound." The log marks 7:58. Correct, 17 minutes of silence. We continued. I noted the terrain, the sightlines, the way the forest pressed closer in some sections and opened into small clearings in others. At mile marker 4, we reached the clearing the rules had mentioned. It was maybe 50 yards across, circular, with the stone marker dead center. The marker was a rough granite pillar, about 4 feet tall, covered in lichen. There was nothing obviously strange about it, but the trail did curve around it, maintaining a distance of at least 15 feet at the closest point. "Dutton measured it," Harlan said. 15 feet is the minimum. Most people walk closer to 20 just to be safe." "What happens if you get closer?" Harlan consulted his clipboard. Dutton's records mention a ranger who stepped inside the perimeter in 1987. A woman named Vasquez. She was looking for a lost hiker, wasn't thinking about the rules. "What happened to her?" "She finished her patrol that night, submitted her report. She was fine for about 3 weeks. Harlan started walking again. Then one morning she walked into the forest and didn't come back. Search party found her pack at mile marker 5. Radio was still inside, still functional. She wasn't." I looked back at the stone marker. In the fading daylight, it looked like any other chunk of rock. We reached the footbridge at mile marker 6. It was a standard wooden construction, anchored on both banks with concrete footings. The creek below ran maybe 10 feet wide, shallow enough to see the rocky bottom, 42 feet across, just like the rules said. "Don't look down," Harlan said. "Don't stop. 42 feet is about 23 steps for someone your height. Keep your eyes on the far bank." "What's in the water?" "I don't know. Dutton crossed this bridge 4,000 times and never looked down. Neither have I." We crossed. I counted 24 steps, kept my eyes forward. Nothing happened. The bridge felt solid, the planks weathered but sturdy. On the far side, Harlan made a note on his clipboard. The fire tower appeared at mile marker 7, visible through a gap in the canopy. It was an old wooden structure, maybe 60 feet tall, with a cab at the top that would have housed an observer in the days before satellite surveillance. The stairs leading up were chained off, and the door at the base had a padlock that looked newer than anything else on the structure. Between 8:32 and 8:44, "There should be a light in that cab," Harlan said. "If there is, keep moving. If there isn't, stop and radio. I'll tell you what to do next." "What does the light mean?" "It means things are where they're supposed to be." We completed the loop. The trail emerged from the forest about 200 yards south of the station, curving through the meadow's edge to meet the front porch. Harlan checked his stopwatch. 3 hours, 47 minutes. You need to stretch it to 4 hours for the real thing. Take longer at the checkpoints. Count your steps more slowly. The timing matters more than the pace. We ate dinner in the station kitchen. Canned soup and bread from a freezer that hummed loudly in the corner. Harlan explained the radio protocols, the log formats, the supply schedule. A truck came every 2 weeks with food, fuel, and equipment. Mail came once a month. The nearest town was 47 miles away by road, but only 12 miles as the crow flies. Why the difference? Roads have to go around certain areas. The crow doesn't. At 4:55 p.m., I suited up, flashlight checked and fresh. Radio tuned to channel 4. Rope coiled and secured to my belt. Whistle on a lanyard around my neck. Salt in a sealed bag in my jacket pocket. 2 pounds exactly. Harlan handed me a folded piece of paper. Today's code word is limestone. If someone asks you for the code word, that's what you say. If you need to verify someone else, that's what they should say. How many people are out there who might need verifying? On a normal night, none. But the rules exist for nights that aren't normal. I stepped outside at 5:12 p.m. The sun was below the tree line, the sky fading to purple above the meadow. I walked to the northeast corner and waited by the Sector 4 marker. At 5:17 exactly, I started walking. The first mile was unremarkable. The trail was easy to follow, the reflective markers visible in my flashlight beam every quarter mile. The forest was quiet except for the usual sounds: wind in the canopy, the occasional rustle of small animals in the undergrowth. I check my watch every few minutes, adjusting my pace to stay on schedule. At 6:04 p.m., I reached mile marker 2. I was running slightly fast, so I paused to check my gear, killing 3 minutes until I was back on pace. The boulder with the paint mark was ahead, visible at the edge of my light. I continued. At 6:31 p.m., I heard the first anomaly. Footsteps behind me, measured, steady, matching my pace exactly. I kept walking. The rules said this was normal within expected parameters. Don't turn around, don't speed up, don't slow down. The footsteps continued for maybe 90 seconds. Then they stopped. I noted the time in my mental log, 6:32 to 6:33, and kept moving. At 7:38 p.m., I reached the boulder. 3 minutes until the silence window began. I slowed my pace further, stretching each step until my watch showed 7:41. I stopped breathing loudly. I stopped making any sound at all. The forest seemed to respond in kind, as if even the wind had paused. For 17 minutes, I walked in absolute silence. My boots barely crunched on the gravel. I avoided stepping on any twigs. At one point, I heard my name. Elliot. The voice came from my left, maybe 30 yards into the trees. It was a man's voice, calm and conversational, as if greeting a coworker. I did not respond. I did not slow down. I kept walking, counting my steps, watching for the downed log that would mark the end of the silence window. Elliot Ward. The voice was closer now, maybe 20 yards. I could feel something watching me from the darkness, something patient and interested. I kept walking. At 7:58 exactly, I reached the log. I exhaled slowly, allowed myself to breathe normally again. The voice did not call a third time. The clearing with the stone marker came at 8:02 p.m. I followed the curved trail, keeping my distance at 20 feet. The marker looked the same as it had in daylight, just a chunk of granite covered in lichen. But in the darkness, with only my flashlight illuminating it, the shadows it cast seemed to move independently of the light. I did not investigate. I continued. At 8:09 p.m., I stopped. The rules said to remain stationary until 8:15. I stood on the trail, feet planted, and waited. The forest was quiet. Nothing approached. Nothing moved within my line of sight. At 8:12, I heard the footsteps again, behind me, close, maybe 10 feet back. They were not matching my pace this time because I was not moving. They were simply there, standing behind me, waiting. I did not turn around. I moved my arms slightly to check my watch. 8:13. 2 more minutes. The footsteps shifted. Something circled around me, staying just outside my peripheral vision. I could hear it moving through the brush on my left, then crossing behind me, then moving through the brush on my right. It completed the circuit twice before stopping. 8:15. I resumed walking. The footsteps did not follow. The footbridge came at 8:27. I could see it ahead, the wooden planks pale in my flashlight beam. The creek below was audible, water moving over rocks, a steady white noise that seemed louder than it had been during the daylight walk. I kept my eyes on the far bank. I counted my steps. 1, 2, 3. At step 12, I felt the bridge sway slightly, as if someone else had stepped onto it behind me. 14, 15, 16. The swaying continued. I could hear wood creaking, planks adjusting under weight that was not mine. 20, 21, 22. Something in the water made a sound. Not a splash, something more deliberate, a movement. I did not look down. 23, 24. I stepped off the bridge onto solid ground. The swaying stopped. The sound in the water stopped. I walked for another 30 yards before allowing myself to glance back. The bridge was empty. The creek was silent. At 8:32, the fire tower came into view. I looked up at the cab. There was a light inside, a faint yellow glow like a lantern, steady and unflickering. I kept moving. The final stretch of trail was uneventful. I emerged from the forest at 9:17 p.m., 5 minutes ahead of schedule. I slowed my pace across the meadow, reaching the station porch at 9:21. I knocked twice on the front door. Harlan's voice came from inside. Code word, Limestone. The door opened. Harlan looked me over, checking my gear, my posture, my face. How was it? The silence window was difficult. Something called my name. He nodded. That happens. You didn't respond. No. Good. He stepped aside to let me in. Log your report. Include everything. Then get some sleep. I sat at the desk and wrote. The report took 40 minutes. Every timestamp, every observation, every moment where something seemed off. I noted the footsteps, the voice, the movement on the bridge. I noted the light in the fire tower present between 8:32 and 8:44 as expected. When I finished, Harlan reviewed the report and filed it in the cabinet. Tomorrow night will be the same, he said. Mostly the same. Some things shift depending on conditions. Weather, moon phase, the date. You'll learn to anticipate the variations. What kind of variations? Small ones. The silence window might start a minute earlier. The fire tower light might flicker instead of staying steady. Things that don't require rule changes, just attention. I lay down in bunk 2 at 11:40 p.m. The station was quiet except for the hum of the propane heater and the occasional static burst from the radio. Harlan was in the front office doing something with the filing cabinets. I slept. I did not dream. The next 3 weeks followed the same pattern. Patrol started at 5:17 p.m. Patrol ended at 9:22 p.m. I logged my reports. I followed the rules. The things I encountered became familiar. The footsteps, the voices during the silence window, the movement on the bridge. They were consistent, predictable. As long as I followed the rules, they remained at a safe distance. On October 23rd, Harlan left. He'd been preparing for days, packing boxes, organizing files, leaving notes on procedures I hadn't fully learned yet. His transfer papers had come through 3 weeks before my arrival. He was being reassigned to a post in Colorado, something administrative, away from fieldwork. You'll be alone for about 6 weeks, he said on his last morning. Chen will try to find someone, but this post isn't popular. Most rangers don't last more than a season. Why not? Different reasons. Some can't handle the isolation. Some don't follow the rules. He zipped his final bag closed. You seem like you'll be fine. You're good at procedures. You don't ask too many questions. I have a lot of questions. But you don't let them interfere with compliance. That's the important part. He shook my hand at 8 a.m. A truck from the regional office picked him up at 8:15. I watched it disappear down the road until the trees swallowed it. Then I was alone. The first week was manageable. The solitude was intense, but not unbearable. I'd done isolated postings before. Fire lookouts, backcountry cabins, remote weather stations. This was different in kind, but not in degree. I had a job to do. The rules gave me structure. As long as I followed them, I knew what to expect. On October 29th, I found the amendments. Harlan had left a folder in the desk drawer labeled Seasonal Adjustments. Inside were 6 additional rules, typewritten on the same kind of paper as the core list, but with different dates at the top. The earliest was from 2018. The most recent was from the previous winter. Amendment 1, dated November 2018. Between November 1st and February 28th, the silence window extends by 4 minutes. Begin silence at 7:37 p.m. End silence at 8:02 p.m. Adjust your pace accordingly. Amendment 2, dated December 2019. During snow conditions, don't leave the trail for any reason. If the trail is obscured, stop and wait until visibility improves. If visibility does not improve within 30 minutes, radio the station. If you are alone at the station, retreat to the last visible marker and wait until dawn. Amendment 3, dated January 2020. If you encounter an animal on the trail that does not move when you approach, do not attempt to go around it. Stop at a distance of no less than 15 feet. Wait. The animal will move within 11 minutes. If it does not move within 11 minutes, retreat 100 yards and radio the station. Amendment 4, dated October 2021. The fire tower light may flicker during the new moon. This is expected. If the light goes out entirely during the new moon, do not radio. Continue patrol. The light will return before you reach mile marker 8. Amendment 5, dated March 2022. If you hear a second set of footsteps that is not behind you but beside you, whistle twice, 2 short notes, and increase your pace by 10%. Do not speak. Do not look toward the footsteps. Amendment 6, dated November 2023. Between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m., do not answer the station radio unless the caller identifies themselves with the current code word. If the caller does not provide the code word, do not respond. Log the call time and duration, but do not engage. I read the amendments 3 times. Then I added them to the laminated sheet, copying them in careful block letters on a separate piece of paper that I taped below the original rules. The new moon came on November 3rd. I started my patrol at 5:17 as usual. The sky was overcast, no stars visible. The darkness absolute beyond my flashlight beam. The trail felt different in that kind of dark, narrower, more enclosed. The trees seemed closer. At 7:37, I entered the silence window. The extended timing felt strange. 4 extra minutes of not breathing loudly, not coughing, not clearing my throat. The voice called my name at 7:44, 7:49, and 7:53. Each time, it was closer than the previous call. Each time, I did not respond. At 7:59, something stepped onto the trail ahead of me. I stopped. The rules said to stop if an animal blocked the path. This was not exactly an animal, but it was not exactly not an animal either. It was a shape, roughly deer-sized, standing in the center of the trail, about 30 feet away. My flashlight beam didn't quite reach it, showing only the suggestion of legs, a body, something that might have been a head. I waited. The silence window was still in effect. I had 3 minutes left. I couldn't whistle, couldn't call out, couldn't make any sound to test whether this was one of the expected anomalies or something new. The shape didn't move. At 8:02, the silence window ended. I exhaled slowly, allowing myself to breathe normally. The shape still hadn't moved. "Hello," I said. No response. I checked my watch. The 11-minute window had started. I counted the seconds, watching the shape for any sign of movement. My flashlight battery was good. I'd checked it before leaving the station, 93% charge. But the beam seemed weaker than it should have been, as if the darkness was absorbing the light. At minute 4, the shape shifted. It didn't walk or turn. It shifted like a picture going briefly out of focus and then snapping back. When it resolved, it was facing me directly. I could see eyes. They were not deer eyes. They were too high, too wide set, reflecting my flashlight beam in a color that wasn't quite right. More silver than yellow. More metallic than organic. At minute 7, the shape shifted again. This time, when it resolved, it was 10 feet closer. I stayed still. The rules said to wait. The rules said it would move within 11 minutes. I had 4 minutes left. At minute 9, the shape shifted a third time. When it resolved, it was only 15 feet away. I could see more details now. The suggestion of fur, the outline of legs, something that might have been antlers, but branched in too many directions. At minute 11, the shape turned and walked into the forest. It moved like a deer, that same careful, precise gait. But the timing was wrong, each step lasting a beat too long, as if it was moving through thicker air than I was. I waited until I could no longer hear it moving. Then I continued. The fire tower light was flickering when I reached mile marker 7. Amendment 4 said this was expected during the new moon. I noted the time, 8:36 p.m., and kept walking. At 8:41, the light went out entirely. Amendment 4 said not to radio. Continue patrol. The light will return before you reach mile marker 8. I continued. The darkness was complete now, my flashlight the only illumination in a forest that seemed to swallow light like water, swallowing sound. The trail was harder to follow without the tower light as a reference point. I counted my steps, checked for the reflective markers, kept my pace steady. At 8:47, I reached mile marker 8. I looked back at the fire tower. The light was on, steady, yellow, unflickering. I logged the incident in my report that night. Light absent from 8:41 to 8:47, approximately 6 minutes. Returned before mile marker 8 as expected. I filed the report, made a notation on the amendment sheet, and went to bed. I did not think about what would have happened if the light had not returned. November 7th brought the first supply truck since Harlan's departure. The driver was a man I didn't recognize, heavy-set, middle-aged, wearing civilian clothes instead of a ranger uniform. He backed the truck up to the station porch and started unloading crates without introducing himself. "I'm Ward," I said. "The ranger here." "I know who you are." He handed me a clipboard. "Sign at the bottom, 3 copies." I signed. The manifest listed the expected supplies: canned food, batteries, propane canisters, medical supplies, water purification tablets. At the bottom was an item I hadn't seen before: salt, coarse, 50 pounds. 50 pounds of salt. Winter protocol. The driver finished stacking the last crate on the porch. "You'll go through it faster than you think. The rules only require 2 pounds per patrol." "Winter protocol," he said again, as if that explained everything. He climbed back into the truck, started the engine, and drove away without another word. I inventoried the supplies that afternoon. 14 cans of soup, 11 cans of beans, 8 cans of vegetables, 24 batteries of various sizes, 6 propane canisters, a medical kit with bandages, antiseptic, and painkillers, 4 boxes of water purification tablets, 100 tablets per box, and 50 pounds of salt divided into 25 2-pound bags. That night, I found a note tucked into one of the salt bags. The handwriting was unfamiliar, not Harlan's neat block letters, but a cramped, hurried script that was difficult to read. The note said, "The salt doesn't work. Carry it anyway." I didn't know what to do with that information. The rules said to carry 2 pounds of salt. The rules said I would not need it. But the rules also said not to leave it behind, which implied it served some purpose, even if that purpose wasn't obvious. I added the note to the amendment folder and continued following the rules. On November 12th, I had my first radio contact since Harlan left. The call came at 2:14 a.m. I was asleep in bunk 2 when the static burst woke me. The radio was in the front office, 20 feet away. I got up, walked to the desk, and picked up the handset. Lakeview Station, go ahead. Static. Then a voice, female, professional, slightly distorted by the connection. Lakeview, this is Chen at Regional. Confirming status check. Please advise current conditions. Regional, this is Ward. Conditions nominal. All patrols completed on schedule. No incidents outside expected parameters. Copy that, Lakeview. Be advised, we're showing unusual atmospheric conditions in your sector. Expect possible interference on Channel 4 over the next 72 hours. Understood. Switching to backup channel if primary fails. Negative, Lakeview. Maintain Channel 4. Do not switch channels regardless of interference. Confirm. I paused. The rules said to use Channel 4. But the standard protocol for radio interference was to switch to a backup frequency. Regional, please confirm. Maintain Channel 4, even with interference. Confirmed, Lakeview. Channel 4 only. Chen out. The radio went dead. I logged the call, noting the time, duration, and content. Then I sat at the desk and thought about what Chen had said. Unusual atmospheric conditions, possible interference. Maintain Channel 4 regardless. It sounded like a rule, a new rule, delivered verbally instead of in writing. Or maybe an old rule I hadn't been told about, triggered by conditions I didn't understand. I added a note to the amendment folder. Maintain Channel 4, regardless of interference. Source: Chen Regional, November 12th. The interference started the next night. At 6:47 p.m., while I was walking Sector 4, the radio crackled. I pulled it from my belt and listened. Static, mostly, with occasional breaks that sounded almost like words. I kept walking, keeping the radio in my hand in case a clear message came through. At 7:08, the static resolved into something recognizable. A voice, male, calm, speaking slowly. Mile marker 3, status check, confirm position. I keyed the radio. This is Ward, Lakeview Station. Please repeat your message. Static. Ward, confirm position. Mile marker 3. This is Ward. I'm at mile marker 3. Confirm your identity and station. Silence. Then after maybe 30 seconds, code word. What is the code word? More silence. Then the static faded to nothing and the radio went quiet. I continued patrol. The voice did not return, but I thought about what it had said. It had known my name. It had known my position. It had asked for a code word, the standard verification protocol, but it hadn't provided its own code word first. Amendment 6 said not to answer the radio between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. unless the caller provided the code word. But that rule applied to incoming calls at the station. It didn't say anything about calls received during patrol. I made a note to ask Chen about it during the next status check. The next status check never came. November 15th was quiet. November 16th was quiet. November 17th brought a storm, freezing rain that coated the trail in a layer of ice that made walking dangerous. I modified my pace, took smaller steps, arrived at each checkpoint within the allowed window, but closer to the edges than I liked. At 7:51 p.m., during the silence window, I heard something new. Not footsteps, not my name, something else. A sound like breathing, deep and slow, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. It wasn't loud, but it was pervasive, filling the spaces between the trees, the gaps in my thoughts. I kept walking. I did not make a sound. The breathing continued until 7:58, when the silence window ended, and then it stopped. I logged the incident that night. Breathing sound during silence window. Pervasive. No apparent source. Duration, 7 minutes. I did not speculate about what might be breathing. November 20th was the night everything changed. The storm from the 17th had passed, leaving the forest blanketed in a layer of snow that muffled sound and made the trail harder to see. I followed Amendment 2 carefully, staying on the cleared path, watching for the reflective markers. At 6:22 p.m., I found a body. Not a human body. At least I don't think it was human. It was lying on the trail at mile marker 2, sprawled across the path in a position that suggested it had fallen from a great height. It was roughly human-shaped, 2 arms, 2 legs, a head. But the proportions were wrong. The limbs were too long. The torso was too narrow. The head was turned at an angle that would have been impossible for a human neck. I stopped 15 feet away, as the rules specified. I checked my watch. 6:22. Too early for the silence window. Too early for the stationary period. There was no rule that covered this situation directly. I radioed the station. No response. I was alone, and the radio only reached other rangers in the field. I waited. The body did not move. I counted 11 minutes, then 20. Nothing changed. The body just lay there, snow accumulating on its surface, unmoving. Amendment 3 said animals would move within 11 minutes. This was not an animal, and it was not moving. I considered my options. I could retreat to the last checkpoint and wait for dawn, as Amendment 2 suggested for obscured visibility. But the visibility was fine. The body was clearly visible, clearly blocking the trail. The rules said not to deviate from the route. The rules said not to take shortcuts. I couldn't go around. I couldn't go through. I couldn't wait indefinitely. I made a decision. I stepped off the trail. It was only 3 feet, just enough to circle around the body while staying within sight of the path. I moved slowly, keeping my flashlight trained on the shape, watching for any sign of movement. The body did not move. I passed it. I stepped back onto the trail. I checked my watch, 6:41, and continued walking. For the next hour, nothing unusual happened. The silence window came and went. The stone marker sat in its clearing, untouched. The footbridge was solid, the water silent beneath it. The fire tower light was steady. But at mile marker 8, I noticed something wrong. The trail had changed, not dramatically, just a subtle shift in the arrangement of trees, the angle of a fallen log, the position of a boulder I'd used as a landmark for 3 weeks. Everything was in the right general location, but nothing was exactly where I remembered it. I checked my watch. 8:53. I should have been nearing the end of the patrol, preparing to emerge from the forest into the meadow. I kept walking. At 9:06, I reached a checkpoint I didn't recognize. A wooden post marked Sector 11 stood beside the trail. I had never seen Sector 11 on any map. The patrol route only covered Sectors 4, 7, and 9. I stopped. I checked my compass, still pointing north. I checked my watch, 9:07. I was running late. The rules said to return to the station by 9:22. I turned around. The trail behind me had changed too. The trees were closer together, the canopy lower, the path narrower. I could see reflective markers, but they were wrong, spaced too close together, reflecting a color that was more green than blue. I walked back the way I'd come. After 10 minutes, I reached another unfamiliar checkpoint, Sector 14. I checked my watch, 9:17. 5 minutes until my patrol window closed. I picked up my pace. Not running. The rules said never to run, but walking as fast as I could manage without breaking into a jog. The trail twisted, turned, opened into clearings I'd never seen, and closed into corridors too narrow for comfort. At 9:21, I saw the station lights. They were wrong. The building was wrong. Instead of a single-story structure with green paint and a communications tower, I was looking at a 2-story cabin with blue shutters and no tower at all. A sign above the door read Pinewood Outpost. I had never heard of Pinewood Outpost. I stopped at the edge of the tree line, 50 yards from the building. A figure moved inside, passing by a window on the 2nd floor. I couldn't see details. Just a shape, human-sized, walking with a gait that was almost normal. Almost. I checked my watch. 9:22. I was out of time. I had failed to return to Lakeview Station within the patrol window. I had broken a rule. I waited. I watched the building. The figure passed the window again, moving in the opposite direction. Then again. Then again. The same path, the same timing, over and over, like a recording on loop. At 9:38, the figure stopped at the window and looked out. I couldn't see its face, but I could feel it seeing me. I backed into the forest, keeping my flashlight trained on the building. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, watching as I retreated down the trail. I walked for 3 hours. The trail kept changing, sometimes subtly, sometimes dramatically. Checkpoints appeared and disappeared. Sectors I'd never heard of rotated through. Sector 18, Sector 3, Sector 26. The fire tower was visible at one point, then gone, then visible again from a different angle. At 12:34 a.m., I found my way back to Lakeview Station. I don't know how. The trail had simply corrected. One moment I was walking through unfamiliar forest. The next, I was stepping into the meadow I recognized. The station in front of me, exactly where it was supposed to be. I knocked twice on the front door. No one answered. I was alone. There was no one to acknowledge my return. I waited 90 seconds. I circled the building clockwise. I knocked again. Still no answer. The rules said not to try the back door. I didn't. Instead, I sat on the front porch and waited for dawn. At 6:47 a.m., the front door unlocked itself. Not opened, unlocked. I heard the deadbolt slide back, the mechanism click. The door stayed closed, but when I tried the handle, it turned. I went inside. Everything was exactly as I'd left it. I logged my report. It took 90 minutes to write. Every timestamp, every deviation, every wrong turn. I described the body on the trail, my decision to step off the path, the way the forest had changed afterward. I described Pinewood Outpost, the figure in the window, the 3 hours I'd spent lost. At the bottom of the report, I wrote, "Rule violation, stepped off trail at 6:41 p.m. to avoid obstruction. Subsequent patrol compromised." I filed the report and went to bed. That night, I found a new document in my locker. It was handwritten, the script matching the note from the salt bag. Cramped, hurried, difficult to read. The paper was old, yellowed at the edges, folded into quarters. The document was titled Emergency Protocols. Emergency Protocol 1. If the trail changes during patrol, do not attempt to navigate back to the station. Find the nearest checkpoint and remain stationary until dawn. Movement through altered terrain increases the probability of encounter. Emergency Protocol 2. If you encounter a structure that is not Lakeview Station, do not approach, do not enter. If you are seen by an occupant, break visual contact immediately and retreat at least 200 yards before stopping. Emergency protocol. 3. If the patrol window closes before you return to the station, find elevated ground with clear sight lines. Remain stationary until first light. Do not sleep. Do not close your eyes for more than 4 seconds at a time. Emergency protocol. 4. If you hear your name spoken by a voice you recognize, do not respond. If you hear your name spoken by your own voice, respond once with the current code word. If the voice repeats the code word correctly, continue patrol. If it does not, implement Protocol 3 immediately. Emergency Protocol 5. The trail will correct itself by dawn. This is reliable. Wait. I read the protocols 3 times, then I added them to the laminated sheet, copying them onto the amendment paper. Someone had left these for me. Someone who knew I would need them. I didn't know who, but I followed the rules. November 23rd was the first night I completed a patrol without incident since the body. The trail was stable, the checkpoints correct, the fire tower lights steady. I returned to the station at 9:19, knocked twice, acknowledged my own absence, and went inside. The radio crackled at 11:04 p.m. I was in the kitchen, heating soup on the propane stove. I walked to the front office and picked up the handset. Lakeview Station. Static. Lakeview Station, this is Ward. Go ahead. A voice came through, male, familiar. Elliot, it's Harlan. I need you to listen carefully. I froze. Harlan was in Colorado. Harlan didn't have access to this radio frequency. Harlan had no reason to be calling me at 11 p.m. Identify yourself with the code word. Silence. Code word, please. The voice came again, unchanged. Elliot, it's Harlan. There's something you need to know about the trail. Amendment 6 said not to answer the station radio between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. unless the caller provided the code word. But the caller had not provided the code word. I did not respond. I set down the handset. I logged the call, time, duration, content, and went back to the kitchen. The soup had boiled over while I was gone. I cleaned the stove, ate what was left, and went to bed. At 2:29 a.m., the radio crackled again. I did not get up. I lay in bunk 2, listening to the static, waiting for a voice that never came. The radio crackled for 11 minutes, then went silent. In the morning, I checked the log. The radio showed no record of either call. The next supply truck arrived on November 27th. Same driver as before, same civilian clothes, same wordless efficiency. He unloaded the crates, handed me the clipboard, waited for my signature. Additional item, he said, pointing to a small box at the bottom of the stack. Special delivery. The box was unmarked. Inside was a handheld GPS unit, an older model, ruggedized, with a small screen and a chunky antenna. A note was taped to the screen. The note said, "Do not use during patrol, for emergencies only. Track your position if the trail changes. Do not rely on it." I turned on the GPS. The screen showed my position, accurate to within 3 meters according to the display. Lakeview Station, coordinates exact. Who sent this? The driver was already climbing into the truck. Winter protocol, he said, and drove away. I added the GPS to my patrol kit. I did not use it, but I carried it just in case. December came. The snow deepened. The patrols became harder, more careful footing, more attention to the trail, more awareness of the changing conditions. The silence window extended as the amendments specified. The fire tower light flickered on new moons. The footsteps followed me at varying distances, sometimes close, sometimes far, always present. On December 4th, I received a transmission I couldn't ignore. The radio crackled at 7:12 p.m. I was on patrol, approaching mile marker 4. I pulled the handset from my belt. "This is Ward." "Ward, this is Chen at Regional. Emergency protocol in effect. Confirm your position." "Mile marker 4, Sector 7. "Acknowledged. Be advised, we have reports of a missing ranger in your sector. Last known position was the fire tower at Lakeview. Ranger identification, Howard Dutton." I stopped walking. Dutton, the ranger who'd written the rules, the ranger who'd retired to Arizona. "Regional, please confirm. Did you say Howard Dutton?" "Confirmed. Dutton, Howard. Age 67. Last contact, November 15th, approximately 10 p.m. Search protocols are in effect. If you encounter Dutton or signs of his presence, do not approach. Radio immediately." "Regional, I was informed Dutton transferred out of this sector years ago." Static. "Regional, please confirm." The radio went dead. I continued patrol. The fire tower light was steady. I did not see any sign of Dutton. I returned to the station at 9:18, logged my report, and spent 3 hours searching the filing cabinets for any mention of what had happened to the previous ranger. I found the file at 2:40 a.m. It was buried in the bottom drawer beneath 3 years of supply manifests and weather reports, a single folder labeled Dutton, H, Personnel. Inside was a transfer request dated 6 years ago, a medical evaluation dated 5 years ago, a series of incident reports dated 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and a photograph. The photograph showed a man standing in front of Lakeview Station. He was maybe 50, thin, with close-cropped gray hair, and a face that looked like it hadn't smiled in years. He was wearing a ranger uniform with the old patch. Lakeview Station in faded letters. Written on the back of the photograph in handwriting I now recognized from the emergency protocols. "He comes back, don't let him in." I put the folder away. I did not sleep that night. December 7th was the night I met Dutton. The patrol started normally. Clear sky, half moon, temperature around 20 degrees. The snow was firm enough to walk on without breaking through, which made the trail easier to follow. At 7:43, I entered the silence window. The forest was quiet, too quiet. Even the usual ambient sounds were muted, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. I walked carefully, counting my steps, watching for the downed log that marked the window's end. At 7:51, I heard footsteps, not behind me, not beside me, ahead. I stopped. The rules said to remain stationary during the silence window if necessary. I waited, watching the trail ahead, listening to the footsteps approach. A figure emerged from the darkness. It was a man, thin, gray hair, ranger uniform with the old patch. He walked with a slight limp, favoring his left leg, and he carried a flashlight that was turned off. Dutton. He stopped about 20 feet away. In the moonlight, I could see his face, older than the photograph, weathered, with eyes that reflected the ambient light in a way that wasn't quite right. "Ward," he said, "I've been waiting for you." I did not respond. The silence window was still in effect. I had 7 minutes left. "I know you can't talk," Dutton said. "That's fine, just listen." He took a step closer. 18 feet. "The rules are wrong, Ward. They were always wrong. I spent 20 years following them, and look where it got me. 16 feet. There's a better way. I found it. The things out here, they're not hostile. They're just different. They follow their own rules, and those rules are older than ours. Truer. 14 feet. All you have to do is stop following the procedures, stop timing your patrols, stop avoiding the checkpoints. Let the forest show you what it really is. 12 feet. He was too close. The rules said to maintain distance from unverified individuals. The rules said to demand a code word before approaching within 10 yards. I couldn't speak, but I could act. I whistled. One short note. Dutton stopped. His expression shifted, not dramatically, but perceptibly. Something flickered behind his eyes. "That won't help," he said. "That's just another rule, another cage." I whistled again. 2 short notes. Amendment 5 said to increase pace by 10%. But I couldn't move. The stationary period was still in effect. I checked my watch. 7:57. 1 minute left. Dutton took another step. 10 feet. The trail changed for you, didn't it? I saw your reports. You stepped off the path, and everything shifted. That's because the path isn't real, Ward. It's a construct, a limitation. The forest lets you see what it really is when you stop obeying. 8 feet. I could smell him now. Not decay. Something else. Something like pine resin and ozone, and something underneath that my brain refused to identify. 7:58. The silence window ended. "Limestone," I said. Dutton tilted his head. The movement was wrong. Too smooth, too controlled, like a machine mimicking human behavior. "Code word," I said. "State the current code word." Dutton smiled. "Limestone," he repeated. It was the right word, but the way he said it was wrong. The emphasis was off, the timing delayed by half a beat, as if he was reading from a script he didn't fully understand. "Incorrect inflection," I said. "Verification failed." I turned and walked, not running. The rules said never to run, but walking at the maximum speed I could manage without breaking stride. Behind me, I heard Dutton call out, "Ward, Ward, don't walk away from this, Ward." I did not turn around. "Ward." The voice changed. It was still Dutton's voice, but lower, rougher, with harmonics that didn't belong to a human throat. "Ward." I walked faster. At 7:59, I reached the downed log. The silence window was over, but something else had begun. The forest felt different, denser, closer, more aware. The trees seemed to lean toward the trail, their branches reaching across like fingers. At 8:02, I reached the clearing with the stone marker. I followed the curved trail, maintaining my distance, keeping my pace steady. The marker sat in its usual place, covered in lichen, but there was something on top of it. A radio. Government issue. The same model I carried on my belt. I did not stop. I did not investigate. The rules said to follow the trail and continue patrol. I continued. At 8:09, I stopped for the stationary period. The forest was silent around me. No footsteps, no voice. Nothing moved within my line of sight. At 8:15, I resumed walking. At 8:27, I reached the footbridge. Dutton was standing on the far bank. He was facing me, motionless, his turned-off flashlight still in his hand. In the moonlight, I could see that something was wrong with his face. The proportions had shifted, the jaw too wide, the eyes too far apart. "Ward," he said, "you need to cross." I looked at the bridge, 42 feet, 24 steps. "Don't stop. Don't look down." "I know what you're thinking," Dutton said. "The rules say to cross at normal pace. The rules say to keep your eyes forward. But what happens if you don't? What happens if you stop in the middle and look at what's below?" I didn't answer. I stepped onto the bridge. "I can show you," Dutton said. "I can show you everything. 1, 2, 3. The water isn't water, Ward. It's something else, something older. 7, 8, 9. If you look down, you'll see them, the things that live underneath, the things that make the rules necessary. 14, 15, 16. Don't you want to understand? 20, 21, 22. I stepped off the bridge onto the near bank, the bank where Dutton had been standing. But Dutton was gone. The far bank was empty. I checked behind me. The bridge was empty too. I continued patrol. The fire tower light was flickering when I reached mile marker 7. Not the new moon flicker, something else. A rhythmic, like a signal in a language I didn't speak. At 8:33, the light went out. At 8:34, it came back on. At 8:35, it went out again. I checked my watch. I was supposed to radio the station if the light was absent between 8:32 and 8:44. But the station was empty. There was no one to radio. I consulted the amendments. Amendment 4 said the light might flicker during the new moon, but it wasn't a new moon. Amendment 4 said not to radio if the light went out during the new moon, but this wasn't the new moon. I had no rule for this situation. I made a decision. I did not radio. I continued patrol. At 8:41, the light came back on, steady, unflickering. I logged the incident in my patrol notes and continued to the station. At 9:19, I knocked twice on the front door. "Limestone," I said to the empty building. I went inside. The radio was crackling when I entered. Static, loud, filling the front office with white noise. I walked to the desk and picked up the handset. "Lakeview Station." The static resolved into a voice, female, familiar. "Ward, this is Chen. Status report, please." "Patrol complete. Anomalies noted. Dutton sighting at mile marker 2 and mile marker 6. Silence. Then, "Please repeat. Did you say Dutton?" "Confirmed. Individual matching. Dutton's description appeared on the trail at 7:51 p.m. and at 8:27 p.m. Verification failed both times." More silence. Longer. "Ward, listen carefully. Do not engage with the individual you described. Do not attempt to verify their identity. If you see them again, implement Emergency Protocol 3 immediately. Do you understand?" "Understood." "Chen out." The radio went dead. I logged the call. I filed my patrol report. I sat at the desk until the propane heater clicked off and the cold crept into the station. At 3:47 a.m., I heard footsteps on the porch. Heavy, measured. One step every 2 seconds, circling the building clockwise. I did not move. I did not look out the window. The footsteps completed 1 circuit, 2 circuits, 3. At 3:59, they stopped. At 4 a.m. exactly, the front door rattled. Not a knock, not a test of the handle, just a rattle, as if something was pressing against it, testing its weight. I waited. At 4:01, the rattling stopped. At 4:02, I heard a voice. Dutton's voice, muffled by the door. "Ward, let me in. It's cold out here." I did not respond. "Ward, I know you're there. I can see the light under the door." Amendment 6 said not to answer the radio between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. unless the caller provided the code word. But Dutton wasn't on the radio. He was at the door. "Code word," I said. My voice was steady. Silence. "State the current code word." More silence. Then from the other side of the door, "Limestone." Correct, but wrong. The same delayed emphasis. The same mechanical precision. "Verification failed," I said. The door rattled again. Harder this time, the frame creaking. "Ward, open the door." I backed away from the entrance. I moved to the radio desk, keeping my eyes on the front door. The rattling continued, rhythmic, insistent. Then it stopped. I heard footsteps again, circling, counterclockwise this time. 1 circuit, 2, 3. At 4:11, the footsteps moved away from the building. I could hear them crossing the meadow, heading toward the tree line. At 4:14, they stopped. At 4:15, I looked out the window. The meadow was empty. The snow was undisturbed. There were no footprints. I did not sleep. I stayed awake until dawn, watching the meadow, listening for sounds that didn't come. At 6:47, the front door unlocked itself. I opened it carefully. The porch was empty. The snow showed no tracks, no disturbance, no sign that anything had stood there hours earlier. I logged the incident. I filed the report. I made a note to ask Chen about protocols for door intrusion attempts. I never got the chance. December 9th was the last time I heard from Chen. The call came at 10:15 a.m. Daylight, well outside the restricted window. I answered immediately. Lakeview Station. Ward, this is Chen. I have an update on the Dutton situation. Go ahead. We've confirmed that Howard Dutton died in Phoenix, Arizona on September 14th of this year. Natural causes, heart failure. His body was cremated on September 17th. I let that settle. Then who have I been seeing? Unknown. Whatever you're encountering is using Dutton's appearance and voice, but it is not Dutton. Do you understand? Understood. Ward, I'm going to send you a revised protocol list. It should arrive with the next supply delivery. Until then, I need you to follow these additional rules. She gave me 6 new amendments. I wrote them down as she spoke. Amendment 7. If the individual resembling Dutton approaches within 10 feet, do not engage verbally. Break visual contact and retreat at minimum normal walking pace. Amendment 8. The individual may attempt to enter the station. Do not open the door between sunset and sunrise for any reason. If the individual claims to be injured, do not open the door. Amendment 9. The individual may attempt to communicate via radio. Any transmission purporting to be from Dutton should be logged but not acknowledged. Amendment 10. If the individual is visible from inside the station, close all curtains and do not look outside until dawn. Amendment 11. The individual cannot enter the station if all doors and windows remain sealed. Verify seals before each patrol and upon return. Amendment 12. If you hear Dutton's voice speaking your full name, first and last, implement Emergency Protocol 4 immediately, regardless of time or location. I read the amendments back to confirm. Chen acknowledged, reminded me to stay compliant, and signed off. It was the last transmission I received from Regional. December 10th through December 14th were quiet. I completed my patrols, logged my reports, maintained the station. The snow continued to fall, accumulating to nearly 18 inches by the end of the period. The trail became harder to follow, the checkpoints half buried. On December 15th, the supply truck did not arrive. I waited until noon, then until 3 p.m., then until sunset. No truck, no delivery, no revised protocols. I inventoried my remaining supplies: 7 cans of soup, 4 cans of beans, 2 cans of vegetables, 11 batteries, 3 propane canisters, 14 bags of salt. I had enough for maybe 2 weeks, 3 if I rationed carefully. The radio remained silent. December 16th was the night I understood. The patrol started normally. I followed the trail, past the checkpoints, observed the fire tower light. The silence window came and went without incident. The footbridge was solid. At 8:47, I emerged from the forest into the meadow. The station was dark. I stopped at the tree line 200 yards from the building. I'd left the lights on when I departed at 5:17. The front office lamp, the kitchen overhead. Now the windows showed nothing. Total blackness. I checked my watch. 8:48, 34 minutes until my patrol window closed. I walked toward the station, slowly, watching. At 150 yards, I noticed the propane tank. The valve was open. I could smell the gas, faint but distinct, carried on the cold air. At 100 yards, I noticed the front door. It was open, not broken, just open. The frame intact, the hinges undamaged. At 75 yards, I stopped. Something was standing on the porch. Not Dutton. Something else. Something tall, maybe 7 feet, maybe more, with limbs that didn't bend in the right places. It was facing away from me, looking into the dark interior of the station. I did not move. The thing on the porch shifted, not turned, shifted, the way the deer-shaped thing had shifted in November. When it resolved, it was facing me. I couldn't see details. The moonlight wasn't strong enough, and my flashlight was aimed at the ground. But I could see eyes, 2 of them reflecting silver, positioned where a human's eyes would be, but too wide, too far apart. We stood there, 50 yards of snow between us. Neither of us moved. Then the thing on the porch spoke. Elliot Ward, my full name, first and last. Emergency protocol. 4. If you hear your name spoken by a voice you recognize, do not respond. If you hear your name spoken by your own voice, respond once with the current code word. This wasn't a voice I recognized. This wasn't my own voice. This was something else, something ancient, something that had never spoken human words before this moment. I didn't respond. I didn't move. Elliot Ward, it said again. Come inside. I took a step backward. The rules cannot help you, the thing said. They are observations, not protections, patterns in the data, correlations without causation. Another step backward. Dutton understood, eventually. He stopped following the rules. He stepped off the path. He let the forest show him what it truly is. Another step. You have been stepping off the path for weeks now. Every time you deviate, every time you hesitate, you prove that the rules are arbitrary. They do not save you. They only delay the inevitable. I was at the tree line now. The forest was behind me, dark and silent. The thing on the porch shifted again. When it resolved, it was at the bottom of the steps, 30 yards closer. Come inside, Elliot Ward. See what waits for you. I turned and walked into the forest. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Heavy, measured, matching my pace exactly. Emergency protocol. 3. Find elevated ground with clear sight lines. Remain stationary until first light. Do not sleep. Do not close your eyes for more than 4 seconds at a time. I walked. The trail was there. Familiar, correct. The reflective markers visible in my flashlight beam. I followed it backward, retracing my patrol route, moving toward the fire tower. The footsteps followed. At mile marker 8, I reached the tower. The structure loomed above me, 60 feet of condemned wood and rusted metal. The light in the cab was on, steady, yellow, unflickering. I climbed. The stairs were icy, the railings frozen. I moved carefully, testing each step before committing my weight. 30 feet up, 40, 50. The footsteps stopped at the base of the tower. I reached the cab at 57 feet. The door was locked with a padlock, but the lock was rusted through. One sharp pull, and it snapped open. I stepped inside. The cab was maybe 10 feet square, with windows on all 4 sides. The light source was a lantern, battery-powered, sitting on a table in the center. Beside it was a logbook, a radio, and a note. The note was in Dutton's handwriting, the real Dutton, the cramped and hurried script I'd come to recognize. The note said, "If you're reading this, you've done well. The tower is safe until dawn. Do not go back to the station until the sun is up. Do not open the windows. Do not look down." I sat at the table. I checked my watch. 9:53 p.m. 8 hours until dawn. Below me, at the base of the tower, something began to climb. I heard it on the stairs, slow at first, then faster. The wood creaked, groaned, protested under weight that was wrong, too heavy, distributed across too many limbs. At 10:04, the climbing stopped. I looked up. The ceiling of the cab was solid, but above it was a service hatch. A small door that opened onto the observation platform at the very top of the tower. The hatch was latched from inside. The hatch rattled. I did not move. I did not look up. I kept my eyes on the logbook, reading the entries by lantern light. The logbook was Dutton's, real entries, dated over 23 years. Weather observations, patrol notes, supply inventories, normal ranger business, documented in careful detail. Then the entries changed. November 12th, 2018. First sighting, approximately 7:45 p.m. during patrol. Figure at tree line, approximately 100 yards. Did not approach, did not respond to verbal contact. November 15th, 2018. Second sighting, same figure, same time, closer. Approximately 60 yards, maintained distance, completed patrol without incident. November 19th, 2018. Figure appeared inside silence window. Did not speak, did not acknowledge. Figure retreated at 7:58 p.m. exactly. November 24th, 2018. Figure approached within 30 feet. Wrong proportions, wrong gait, wrong eyes. Retreated to station, did not complete patrol. November 26th, 2018. Added Amendment 1. Extended silence window by 4 minutes. Figure did not appear. The entries continued, month after month, year after year. Each sighting noted, each pattern documented. Dutton had built the rules through observation, through trial and error, through near misses and escapes. The hatch rattled again, harder. I turned the page. October 3rd, 2024. Transfer request approved. Ward E arriving. October 1st. Left comprehensive protocols. Left emergency notes. Left everything I know. October 3rd, 2024. I am not going to Arizona. I am going into the forest. I have stopped following the rules. I want to see what happens. October 3rd, 2024. The things out here are not hostile. They are different. They follow their own patterns, older and truer than ours. October 3rd, 2024. I was wrong. The entry ended. The rest of the pages were blank. Above me, the hatch stopped rattling. The silence stretched for 1 minute, then 2, then 5. At 10:37, I heard a voice. Dutton's voice, the real Dutton, matching the audio files I'd reviewed during training. "Ward, I'm sorry. I did not respond. I thought I could understand them. I thought the rules were a limitation, a cage. I was wrong." The voice was coming from outside the cab, through the walls. "They took me, Ward. They took what I was and made something else. Something that remembers being Dutton, but isn't. Something that follows their rules now." I stayed silent. "The tower is safe. I can't come in here. I don't know why. Something about the height, the isolation, the way the lantern light fills the space. But I can wait." The voice paused. "Dawn will come, and you'll go back to the station, and eventually you'll make a mistake. Everyone does. A moment of hesitation, a rule misremembered, a deviation too small to notice until it's too late. Another pause. I'll be there when it happens. The voice stopped. I heard movement, something descending the tower stairs, slowly, each step deliberate. At 11:02, the sound stopped entirely. I stayed in the tower until 6:43 a.m. I did not sleep. I did not close my eyes for more than 4 seconds at a time. I watched the windows, the walls, the hatch. Nothing moved. At 6:43, the sun cleared the horizon. I descended the tower, returned to the station, and assessed the damage. The propane leak was deliberate. Someone had opened the valve, probably hoping I would strike a match or flip a light switch. I closed the valve, ventilated the building, waited until the air was clear. The front door had been opened, but not forced. Nothing inside was disturbed. The radio was intact. The supplies were untouched. I logged everything. I filed the report. I wrote down what Dutton had said, word for word, exactly as I remembered it. Then I started preparing for the next night. The days that followed were a matter of survival. The supply truck never came. The radio remained silent. I rationed my food, conserved my batteries, maintained the station as best I could. The patrols continued. Every night I walked the trail. Every night I followed the rules. And every night I saw things. The figure at the tree line, the footsteps behind me, the lights in the forest that didn't belong. On December 22nd, I saw Dutton again. He was standing at mile marker 4 in the clearing with the stone marker. Not outside the perimeter, inside it, less than 5 feet from the granite pillar. He looked normal. The proportions were right. The gait was right. The eyes were reflecting moonlight in the correct color. "Ward," he said, "I found a way." I stopped at the edge of the clearing, 20 feet away. "The marker," Dutton said. "It's a boundary, a threshold. If you cross it, you become part of what's on the other side. But if you stay inside it long enough, if you let it change you gradually, you can come back." I did not respond. I've been inside this perimeter for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of transformation, of becoming something else, of learning their patterns. And now I'm back. He took a step toward me. He was still inside the perimeter, but closer to the edge. "I can teach you, Ward. I can show you how to survive without the rules, how to be part of both worlds." I checked my watch. 8:04, 5 minutes until the stationary period. "You don't have to be afraid," Dutton said. "Fear is a rule too, a limitation." He took another step. He was at the edge of the perimeter now, 1 foot inside, 1 foot outside. "Join me, Ward. Cross the boundary. See what's waiting." I looked at him. At his face, his posture, his hands. Everything was correct. Everything was exactly as Dutton should be, except the shadow. Dutton's shadow didn't match his body. It was too long, too thin, with limbs that branched in directions that Dutton's limbs did not. "Limestone," I said. Dutton smiled. "Limestone," he repeated. The inflection was perfect this time. The timing was exact. But the shadow shifted when he spoke, moving independently, reaching toward me across the snow. "Verification failed," I said. I turned and continued patrol. December 23rd was quiet. December 24th was Christmas Eve, and I celebrated by eating my last can of soup and recording a message on my radio, hoping someone would eventually retrieve it. The message was simple. "This is Ward, Lakeview Station. If you're hearing this, the protocols work. Follow the rules. Don't step off the path. Don't let them in." I don't know if anyone will ever hear it. December 25th was the night I made my decision. The trail was stable, the checkpoints were correct, the fire tower light was steady, the patrol was unremarkable in every way. No sightings, no footsteps, no voices calling my name. But when I returned to the station at 9:19, I found a package on the porch. It was wrapped in brown paper, tied with twine, sitting exactly in front of the door. My name was written on the outside in neat block letters. No return address. I did not open it. I pushed it off the porch with my boot, letting it fall into the snow. Then I knocked twice, said the code word to the empty building, and went inside. The package was gone in the morning. On December 26th, the supply truck finally arrived. The driver was new, a woman this time, young, wearing a ranger uniform with the standard patch. She backed the truck up to the porch and started unloading without introducing herself. "I'm Ward," I said. "I know." She handed me the clipboard. "Sign at the bottom." I signed. The manifest was extensive, 3 times the usual supplies: food, batteries, propane, medical equipment, salt, rope, flashlights. At the bottom of the manifest was a personnel note. Trainee assigned, Lakeview Station, effective January 1st. "You're staying?" The woman nodded. "Chen's orders, 2-person protocol until spring." "Chen is still sending orders?" "Regional's been restructured, new command, new protocols." She finished unloading and climbed back into the truck. "I'll be back on January 1st. Try not to die before then." She drove away. I inventoried the supplies. I updated the logs. I prepared the second bunk. On December 27th, I started writing this account. The rules work. I don't know why. I don't know what they're protecting me from. Not exactly. Not in terms I could explain to someone who hasn't spent 3 months walking the same 8 miles every night. But I know they work because I'm still here, still following them, still alive. The trainee arrives in 5 days. Her name is Morrison. I've prepared a briefing packet, the core rules, the amendments, the emergency protocols. Everything Dutton left for me, and everything I've learned since. I've added some rules of my own. Rule 13. If you see someone you know inside the perimeter of the stone marker, do not approach regardless of verification. Shadows do not lie. Rule 14. The fire tower is safe until dawn. If you need shelter during patrol, climb to the cab and wait. Do not open the service hatch for any reason. Rule 15. The supply truck arrives on schedule, but the package never does. If you find a package on the porch, do not open it. Do not bring it inside. Leave it for the snow. I don't know if these rules will be enough. I don't know if any rules are enough. But they're what I have, and they're what I'll pass on to Morrison when she arrives. The trail is consistent. The patterns are reliable. The things in the forest follow their own logic, older and stranger than ours. We adapt. We document. We comply. It's the only way to survive. Tonight, I'll walk the patrol one more time. I'll pass the checkpoints, observe the fire tower, cross the footbridge without looking down. I'll listen for footsteps, watch for shadows, count the minutes until dawn. And when I return, I'll add one final note to the logbook, one final observation for whoever comes after me. The forest does not change. The rules do not protect. They only reveal what was always there, hiding in plain sight, waiting for the moment when compliance fails. I have not failed yet. I intend to keep it that way. This morning, I woke at 6:30 to the sound of the front door unlocking itself. The mechanism clicked, the deadbolt slid back, and the door stayed closed. When I checked the porch, the snow was unmarked. I made coffee on the propane stove and sat at the desk, reviewing my notes. Morrison arrives in 4 days. I've prepared everything I can prepare. The rules are documented. The amendments are current. The emergency protocols are posted on the wall in clear, readable print. The supplies are inventoried, the batteries sorted, the salt weighed and bagged. There's one thing I haven't written down. One observation I've kept out of the official logs. It's not a rule, exactly. More of a pattern, something I've noticed over the past 3 months that doesn't fit the established categories. The thing that wears Dutton's face, it only appears when I deviate from the rules. Not major deviations, not rule violations, but small departures. Moments of hesitation, seconds of doubt. The times when I think about stepping off the trail, about looking down from the bridge, about answering a voice I shouldn't acknowledge. It appears when I think about breaking the rules, not when I actually break them. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's stalking me, testing me, or simply observing. I don't know if it was ever really Dutton at all, or if Dutton was always something else wearing a ranger's face. But I know this. The rules don't protect against curiosity. They don't prevent doubt. They only create the framework within which doubt must operate. I've stopped being curious. I've stopped doubting. I follow the rules because the rules are the only structure I have. And without structure, I would have walked into the forest weeks ago, looking for answers that don't exist. The trainee will arrive. I'll show her the trail. I'll walk her through each checkpoint, each timing window, each threshold. I'll explain the rules in the same flat, practical tone Harlan used when he explained them to me. And then I'll watch her face, looking for the moment when curiosity appears. It always does. The supply manifest included an item I didn't request, a satellite phone, fully charged, with a note from Regional. The note said, "For emergency use only. Maintain radio protocols unless radio fails." I tested the phone this afternoon. It works. 3 bars of signal, enough to make a call if I needed to. I've stored it in the desk drawer, next to the GPS unit I've never used. I don't know if I'll ever use either one. The rules don't mention satellite phones. The protocols don't account for technology that didn't exist when Dutton first started documenting the patterns. Maybe that's fine. Maybe new tools don't change the fundamental logic. Maybe compliance is compliance regardless of the equipment involved. Or maybe the things in the forest adapt too. Maybe they're watching me test the satellite phone, learning, incorporating it into their own patterns. Maybe the next rule I write will cover satellite communications, timing windows for calls, frequencies to avoid after dark. I'll find out. Tonight's patrol begins at 5:17. The temperature is dropping. Forecast says -15 by midnight. I've checked my gear twice. Flashlight charged, radio tuned to channel 4, rope coiled, whistle clean, salt weighed, 2 pounds exactly. I don't know what the salt is for. I've carried it for 3 months, and I've never needed it. Never opened the bag. Never done anything but feel its weight in my jacket pocket. But I carry it. Because the rules say to carry it. Because compliance is survival. Because out here, in the forest that doesn't follow our patterns, the rules are all we have. Morrison will learn this. She'll question the rules first. Everyone does. She'll ask why and how and what happens if. She'll look at the stone marker and wonder what's on the other side. She'll pause on the footbridge and think about looking down. And I'll tell her what Harlan told me, in the same tone, with the same certainty. The rules work. Don't deviate. Don't hesitate. Compliance is survival. It's the only lesson that matters out here. The sun is setting. The meadow is turning gold, then orange, then the color of rust. The tree line is a dark line at the edge of the world, absorbing the light, waiting for night. In 17 minutes, I'll start walking. In 4 hours and 5 minutes, I'll return. In the morning, I'll write my final report, and I'll prepare the bunk for Morrison, and I'll wait for the supply truck to bring her to this place where time follows rules we don't understand. And when she arrives, I'll hand her the laminated sheet, and I'll watch her read it aloud, and I'll listen to her voice speak the words that kept me alive through the longest winter of my life. Rule 1. Patrol begins at exactly 5:17 p.m. It's almost time. I'm putting on my jacket now, checking the flashlight one more time, counting the keys on my ring. 12, same as always. The forest is waiting. I won't keep it.